What's up YouTube, Jeff back again today on the very exciting Samsung video for you guys. And I know it's been quite a while since I said that on this channel. Today we're talking about everything you need to know about the Galaxy S26 Ultra, Samsung's flagship that will be dropping in January 2026. Now our editor-in-chief over at Sammy Guru, Sumit, he wrote up a full written guide for this, but I know you guys love video, so I decided to make my own video guide and give some of my thoughts about each of these important spec categories that we're planning to see on the S26 Ultra. Now, before we get started, I do want to remind you guys you can get a free mystery box from us at Sammy Guru if you're ordering an S26 Ultra. Check all the links below. You get a bunch of free accessories if you order through us. And for the very first category, since I don't want to keep anyone waiting, I know a lot of times people want to know the price. Is there going to be a price increase in 2025? People usually put that at the end of the video, so today I'll put that up front. And right now, what we're expecting is the same $12.99 USD start price here in the United States, which Samsung has tried very, very hard to keep this price from going up, given all of the pressure from rising RAM cost, processor costs from Qualcomm and Snapdragon, etc., which we'll talk about later in the video. But there is still some very small chance that due to all those upward pressure on RAM, especially here in late 2025, that we could see a $100 starting price increase, which would be $13.99 for the base model, all the way up to around $16 or $17.99 for the 1 terabyte model. Now, either way, it's going to be a very expensive phone, and if you guys are looking to save some money to get a new Galaxy S26 Ultra next month, one way that you could do that is with the sponsor of today's video, which is Rocket Money. I've been focusing on saving quite a lot lately, and I'm also the kind of person who signs up for a free trial and then forgets about it until I see that charge down the road on my credit card. That's where Rocket Money can really help out. Heading into the new year, one of my new goals is just understanding where my money is going and finding small places to save without doing a bunch of manual budgeting. I've been using Rocket Money for the past week, and honestly, it's been the easiest way to get a bird's eye view of my finances all in one place. Instead of bouncing around different accounts, Rocket Money pulls everything together so I can finally see the full picture without feeling overwhelmed. There are two key features that I really love about Rocket Money. One thing that immediately helped me is that Rocket Money automatically detected a couple of subscriptions that I had forgotten about and I had been paying for a long time. The app put everything into one clean list so I could finally see what I actually use. And yes, it helped me cancel those subscriptions right inside the app, which is incredibly convenient. This saved me the hassle of going through a customer support maze, which can always be very frustrating. The other thing I love is the spend insights. Rocket Money showed me I was spending way more than I realized on takeout and fast food, which is something I definitely fall into, spending late nights here at the office editing, but this is something that made me realize that I really need to break that habit. So I set a simple spending goal in the Rocket Money app to keep myself aware, and little reminders throughout the week actually help me cut back without feeling restricted. If you want to get a better handle on your finances, use my link below to try Rocket Money for free today and go into 2026 feeling more confident and saving more. Just go to rocketmoney.com/Jeff Springer to get started for free, or you can scan the QR code here on the screen. You'll even get more features if you sign up for their premium service. Rocket Money has really done a great job helping me out and keeping me more aware about what I'm spending on and letting me cancel those annoying subscriptions that I'm no longer using. All right, now that we've got the price out of the way, let's talk about the design and hardware. And Samsung is making some interesting choices this year. They're definitely keeping things a bit safe, but also changing the weight and dimensions a little bit, and it is going to make a difference how it feels in hand. The leaks say we're going from about 8.2 millimeters on the S25 Ultra down to 7.9 millimeters on the S26 Ultra, and from 218 grams down to 217 grams. On paper, the thickness doesn't sound like a huge difference, but in the hand it should feel noticeably slimmer, especially for a phone that's this tall. At the same time, Samsung is also making the phone a little bit wider and a little bit taller as well, so you're going to get a bigger canvas overall. The corners are also more rounded this year and the frame looks a little bit softer, going back to the Galaxy S20 Ultra, S21 Ultra era before Samsung kind of blended the Note and S lineups. The biggest visual change is on the back. Samsung is bringing a pill-shaped camera island instead of separate floating lenses, and that's because the new camera stack is also thicker. The total thickness around the camera bump is rumored to be around 12.4 millimeters, up from 10.6 millimeters on the S25 Ultra. The lens thickness alone jumps from 2.4 millimeters to 4.5 millimeters. Overall, that just means that they had to redesign the camera housing because of the thickness of that camera itself and the lenses That means that we can no longer have the floating lens design. I think this is a bit of a bummer as I've loved the floating lens design over the last few generations, but at the end of the day, this design also looks quite sleek. Let's talk about the glass frame and coating a little bit now. On the front, Samsung is sticking with the titanium frame and upgrading to 3rd gen Gorilla Armor glass. That brings better toughness and stronger anti-reflective properties, with fewer reflections outdoors and clearer content in bright sunlight. Internally, Samsung is re-engineering the cooling systems with a vapor chamber about 15 to 20% larger than that on the S25 Ultra. This matters quite a lot because phones are really heating up these days with these very large AI workloads, so it's great to see Samsung taking thermals very seriously. Now, the display tech itself is where I am getting the most excited about the S26 Ultra. You guys have probably heard about the brand new Flex Magic Pixel technology, and that is what I'm really looking forward to. Samsung is also rumored to bring a 6.9-inch dynamic AMOLED 2X display. While it looks very similar to the S25 Ultra on paper, the internals are getting a major update. They're bringing a new color filter on the encapsulation layer, replacing the traditional polarizer and introducing a black pixel definition layer. In plain English, that means more light transmission, higher brightness, richer color accuracy, and improved efficiency, all while those panels get thinner, which allow us to have that overall thinner frame, which we talked about earlier. Samsung may also move to the M14 OLED panels, further improving brightness and efficiency, even if the peak brightness stays around 2600 nits. The most interesting feature, as I said, is the brand new AI Magic Flex screen, which basically works as a digital privacy filter. If someone is trying to view your screen from the left or the right, it can turn off individual pixels to make it look like it's completely black from their point of view, while you're still able to view the content. I really think this could be a huge selling point. I could see a lot of great advertisements and marketing built around this, and I really believe the average consumer will buy into this AI Pixel technology and find it to be a very compelling feature, and it could be one of the features that sells the S26 Ultra more than anything else. Now, before we get into the camera hardware, let's talk about the S Pen, because a lot of people are wondering, would the S Pen be completely gone with the S26 Ultra? And the good news is, it looks like the S Pen is here to stay for another year. It looks like Samsung may wait till the S27 Ultra to get rid of the S Pen entirely. However, do not hope for a return of Bluetooth functionality. That appears to still be gone as it left with the S25 Ultra, and it may indeed never return until Samsung figures out a way to have a digitizer-free S Pen. That means you're not going to get all those remote control functionality, but you'll still be able to doodle and take your notes, which I think we all appreciate. I know I certainly do. Now let's talk about cameras, and I know this is probably the one that you guys were waiting for the most, and it's not all great news, but Samsung is making some upgrades this year, which is at least encouraging. Samsung has lost some ground in the camera race, especially in zoom and in those side-by-side comparisons against the best Chinese flagships like Oppo, Huawei, and the iPhone. A lot of us were hoping the S26 Ultra would be a full hardware reset, but based on what we know right now, Samsung is taking a much more cautious evolution approach. Plus, they're going to have a very heavy push into AI. The 200 megapixel main camera is expected to keep the ISOCELL HP2 sensor that debuted on the S23 Ultra, which is now 3 generations old. That's the big change here is the aperture. Samsung is rumored to move from f1.7 down to f1.4, which should make a huge difference, capturing 47% more light. That should give you some amazing performance in low light scenarios. It should also give very impressive noise reduction and get extra color reproduction when you take photos at night. Early talk of a full variable aperture system from f1.4 to f4.0 doesn't look likely anymore, but Samsung is working on a virtual aperture mode for portraits that would let you simulate different depth of field looks, kind of like a DSLR without physical moving blades. Of course, this already debuted with the iPhone 17 Pro series, so Samsung is kind of playing catch up here as well. Behind the scenes, Samsung is also rumored to replace the current cover films on the lenses with inkjet printed coating. These are thinner but still control glare and ghosting, which helps the camera bump remain slimmer without ruining the image quality. The most confusing news surrounding cameras on the S26 Ultra is really all about the 3x telephoto. One set of leaks says Samsung switching from a 10 megapixel sensor to a 12 megapixel unit, but only actually using 10 megapixels in photos. Sounds pretty confusing, right? On top of that, the rumored 12 megapixel sensor is smaller, around 1/3.94 inches versus 1/3.52 inches, which isn't great news for low light performance. There are alternative leaks that mention a larger 12 megapixel 1/2.55 inch sensor or even 50 megapixel 3x sensor, and we did hear a Samsung executive tease new camera sensors and big upgrades for 2026. But until those specs firm up, it looks like more of the same from that 3x telephoto, so I wouldn't get too excited just yet. Samsung really seems to still be quite stagnant on this front. The 5x zoom is also a similar story, looking like it's going to stay at 50 megapixels, with a possible aperture bump from f3.4 to f2.9 to help with low light in these shots. The 50 megapixel ultra-wide debuted on the S25 Ultra is also likely to carry over unchanged. The one clear hardware upgrade we're seeing is on the selfie camera. It's still 12 megapixels on paper, but leaks say it's a completely new sensor with a wider field of view. This is great news for those of you who like to take selfies or group shots. You should get much better clarity and low light performance. Overall, Samsung is leaning hard on computational photography this year, and it seems like they're still going to continue the push into improving things with software instead of hardware. I'm really bummed out about this because I was hoping Samsung would take a bigger push into the hardware side with cameras in 2026. They are far behind all those Chinese brands and Apple right now, and it is kind of embarrassing for Galaxy fans. They really need to start catching up starting in 2027 because it doesn't appear we're going to get so lucky this year. Next up, let's talk processor, because the huge debate, as always, is going to be Snapdragon versus Exynos, which phone's getting what, and will the Ultra get Exynos in any regions at all? Early leaks suggest a split, with Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 in some regions and Exynos 2600 in others, similar to the old days. More recent reports lean towards Snapdragon globally, which is usually the story. We start off with all these Exynos rumors, and then we find out later that it's mostly going to be Snapdragon for the Ultra model. Samsung is still publicly talking about strengthening the competitiveness of the Exynos 2600, and they even released a teaser for the processor, which looked very promising, so we can't rule out the fact that they might release the Exynos 2600 for the S26 Ultra in certain regions like South Korea. On paper, both chips look very close. The Snapdragon Elite Gen 5 is an octa-core CPU up to around 4.74 GHz, built on TSMC's 3nm processor node, paired with the X85 modem with download speeds up to 12.5 gigabits per second. The Exynos 2600 features a deca-core CPU up to about 3.8 GHz, Samsung's own 2nm GAA process. The real story will be power efficiency in terminals, which we won't know until we test it. RAM is where things get kind of interesting. As usual, there's always these RAMs about 16 gigabyte variants globally, and whether or not they'll be region specific. Multiple leaks were suggesting Samsung wanted 16 gigs to become the new normal on the Ultra with up to 1 terabyte of storage. That lines up with Samsung's Galaxy I push, on-device generative tools, real-time translation, and smarter personalization. They all lean heavily on the NPU and need plenty of memory. There's still plenty of conflicting reports where some are saying that we're going to get 16 gigabytes on the base model, but that doesn't seem right to me. I think we'll still get 12 gigabytes on the base 256 gig storage model, and we might see 16 gigs as the standard RAM on the 512 and 1 terabyte models, something I would personally like to see, and I think a lot of you guys out there would like to see as well. Either way, you can expect very fast RAM and storage across the board. Expect LPDDR5X RAM and UFS 4.0 or 4.1 storage. To keep everything cool, Samsung is reporting using about 1.2x larger vapor chamber, as we mentioned earlier. That's going to matter for gaming and those heavy AI tasks. We're also hearing about a dual antenna NFC system, one coil in the usual spot near the back, plus a second antenna near the top. This should make tap to pay with Samsung Wallet and Google Pay a lot more accurate and reliable, which is definitely a nice improvement for quality of life. Finally, there's talk of a better ultrasonic fingerprint sensor, not full screen yet, but fewer failed reads and more forgiving scan area. While I would welcome a better ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, this is an area where I feel like it's not a real problem on the S25 Ultra, and Samsung is kind of upgrading things that are not issues while they're still lagging behind in things that are, like that camera hardware. The star of the show on the Galaxy S26 series is likely to be One UI 8.5 and the brand new Galaxy Eye features. One UI 8.5 looks absolutely amazing with a beautiful refined UI. The S26 Ultra should indeed ship with One UI 8.5 on top of Android 16. We've already seen the beta launch for this, and at the center of all this will be mini Galaxy Eye improvements. Expect smarter voice commands, context-aware suggestions, Ask Gemini and Ask Bixby actions tightly integrated into the system apps, a deeper material use style theming system with animated themes, new widgets, and more flexible home and lock screen widgets as well. Bixby may even get some help from Perplexity behind the scenes for better answers, which would honestly be very welcome. One UI 8.5 also brings a bunch of those other great software camera improvements as well, like new watermark stylings, etc., and has a bunch of refined UI elements in the quick settings panel, on the lock screen, inside the phone app. They basically redesigned that language with all those floating tabs and floating bars at the bottom of the various menus, which looks very high-end. They've also refined the blur elements, which look absolutely beautiful. Overall, One UI 8.5 could be one of the best reasons to purchase the S26 series, but of course, if you have an older phone, you will get all of these features, or most of them, soon after the launch. Of course, Samsung could withhold 8.5 for a few months like it did last year with One UI 7, maybe to push people to purchase a new S26. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Next, talk about battery and charging, and this is an area where Samsung is also making massive improvements in an area that they really needed to. Finally, they're doing something that we all asked for. We're going to be sticking with the 5,000 milliamp hour battery, the same as the S25 Ultra. However, they're doing that to get that smaller total thickness on the frame to 7.9 millimeters. There's also been rumors of a 5200 or 5400 milliamp hour variance, but that doesn't seem very solid. Charging is where things are going to pick up. Samsung is going to include 60-watt charging or even 65-watt charging. Right now, it does look like it's going to be that 60-watt value, although there have been some certifications that still show 45 watts. There seems to be a lot of confusion here, but most of the sources that we trust at Sammy Guru seem to be leaning towards that 60-watt number, and Quick Charging 3.0 seems to be the new name for that. And this is a very welcome change because they've been far behind the charging speeds of these Chinese brands for years. We also expect to see built-in magnets in the S26 Ultra for Qi 2 wireless charging at 25 watts right out of the box, also supporting all of those MagSafe type Qi 2 accessories without needing additional case, which is what was required when the S25 series came out last year. The trade-off here may be reverse wireless charging. We don't know if Samsung can keep this without also compromising the Qi 2 magnets inside the phone, but if reverse charging disappears, a robust Qi 2 ecosystem of accessories and charging might be worth it for most people. We already talked about the price earlier, but let's now talk a little bit about the color storage variants and the release expected for this device. There were some original rumors that the launch would be moved from January to February or even March for the S26 series, but those appear to be false at this point. We still expect a launch in January of 2026, probably January 21st or January 28th, which are Wednesdays, and those coincide with Samsung's past Galaxy S Unpacked events. We also expect that there are going to be some titanium color options, probably black, silver, gray for the standard colors, but we might see some brighter shades when it comes to those online exclusives, potentially a nice dark red garnet color, which has looked very nice and made the rounds. There was also some fake leaks of a orange color that looks similar to the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max, but those appear to be generated by AI and unsubstantiated at this point. So that's about it. That's what we're expecting for the Galaxy S26 Ultra. The biggest selling points for me are really the 60-watt charging upgrade, that AI Magic Pixel technology in the display, which basically gives you a digital privacy screen, and One UI 8.5. All of the other kind of upgrades, quote unquote, like the camera, are a little bit disappointing, even though there are a couple of extra things with the display like the M14 OLED. Those are not even going to reach their full potential because we may not get a brightness increase. If you guys are going to purchase this though, make sure you check out the mystery box program at Sammy Guru to get some free accessories when you order. Also want to give another huge shout out if you guys are planning to order and you want to save some money towards your goal of getting the very expensive S26 Ultra, check out our friends and partners over at Rocket Money at our link in the description. It's going to be rocketmoney.com/Jeff Springer to sign up for free, or you can also check the QR code here. Appreciate you guys checking out this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.